Hey.
All right.
Who kicks at the
Hot toddies, dude. Hot toddies.
Come on, you got to seize the goddamn gap. People are so goddamn inefficient. Oh, god damn it! I don't care if you're old, seize the gap!
Hey man, I gotta get going. I have some friends from my fantasy league coming over, so I should find my ride.
Hey, I like sports too. Yeah, I do, but I've never really engaged with the fantasy element of it.
Straight up now, tell me, is it gonna be you and me together? Or are you just having fun?
You know what, John? Cancel your ride. I'll drive you to your fantasy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
And daily fantasy makes every game matter.
I'm lubed and I'm ready for insertion. Inserting right into your hearts, your minds, and your televisions right here on the Joe Blow Football Show. And if I do one thing and one thing only, it's stop being so goddamn inefficient. That's right. It's Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. You got to seize the gap. Jamie G, Esquire, the MD, orthopedic surgeon, some would say. He's Magnum Mills. We're here on the Joe Blow Football Show, and it's time for Seize the Gap. Mills, if there's one thing we found out in week 6, it's hello, Mr. Injury, because the injury bug is biting, baby. It's big ass fucking pit bull biting. Am I right?
When you're right, you're right. Just like when you only own 2 shirts, you only wear 2 shirts. We'll start right off at the top here. Cowboys are on a bye this week. Dak Prescott did suffer a calf strain. The Cowboys are saying he's going to be okay to start in week 8. Not much you can do but take them at their word here, is you're not going to really make any fantasy moves. Obviously, if Prescott was out, you'd have to downgrade CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Dalton Schultz. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's recovered from his calf strain. He's probable this week as the Niners come out of their bye. Trey Lance is questionable with a knee sprain, so look for Jimmy G to be back under center for the 49ers. Baker Mayfield is questionable with that separated non-throwing shoulder. The Browns play on Thursday Night Football this week, so it's not a guarantee that he's in there. If he's out, it would be Case Keenum under center, and at this point, I don't know if that's a huge downgrade, at least for 1 week. And then Tyrod Taylor, he's questionable, eligible to return from IR this week. Does seem like he's a legitimate coin flip whether or not he's back out there for the Texans.
If Davis Mills continues to play well, and if they would have just won one of the 2 of these last games, it might have been the classic Tyrod syndrome where he starts off really good, something happens, and he loses his job to a rookie. Let's move on to week 7 streaming options at the quarterback position. One that's not particularly sexy, but seemed to produce a little bit in week 6 is Tua Tagovailoa. Remember that time we tried to make everybody say it, and I was the only one who didn't because I can't say it?
Correct. Right, so now you just always deliberately butcher the hell out of it so that you can
Correct.
Get away with it. I do think we've talked about earlier, Atlanta is definitely doing better, but their defense is not good despite the steps they've taken on offense. So, if you're struggling for a quarterback for 1 week, I don't mind taking 2 at home against the Falcons, even though it is a bit of a short week for them as they're traveling back from London.
Who else you got this week as a streaming option at the quarterback position?
It's kind of odd saying I'll take someone at Seattle, but Jameis Winston here is coming out of a bye. He's basically had a couple of monster games and a couple of duds. When you're streaming at the quarterback position, that's kind of, unless you're going for that guy who's going to get you, that just 12 points or something like that, you're going to have a little bit of a floor ceiling issue, a boom or bust, a bob. And I think Winston could be in a good spot to actually boom here. The Seahawks defense has been pretty bad, and with them coming out of a bye, I think they'll have a good game plan and be ready to attack and hopefully do something that's not just give the ball to Alvin Kamara until he dies, because we've had enough running backs getting hurt. So please, for the love of God, don't hurt Alvin Kamara too.
We beg of you. One for me, and again, not the most sexiest option in the world here, but I actually like Teddy Bridgewater here at Cleveland. I think Cleveland's defense is going to be on the field an awful lot. They've given up 2 huge games in a row here. I think they're going to be on the field an awful lot because I think Bad Baker's been like, he's staking up like a fucking residency here. He's been Bad Baker for the last couple of weeks. That shoulder injury just looks to get exacerbated and worse with the dislocation. This past week, he's questionable. I just see that defense being on the field a lot. And despite, Teddy Bridgewater and Denver Broncos struggling a little bit last week, he still produced, Mills, 334 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, I will take that in the streamer all day, every day. twice on Sunday.
Correct.
Mills, who else you got here for week 7 and at the quarterback position as a streaming option?
I'd maybe go down just one more option here and say that it's going to be kind of hard to talk yourself into. That would be taking Justin Fields at the Bucks. He did show some progress against the Packers, threw the ball a little bit more freely, got some more rushing attempts, and you have to figure against the Bucks, they're going to be behind, and he's going to have to do something, whether it's throw more passes, run the ball more. Unless they're just going to take a knee, the Bucks defense is so good the teams have basically given up trying to run on them. So pounding Damian Williams and Khalil Herbert into the line 30 times isn't going to really help you there, especially when you're probably going to need to score 28, 30 points to win. So he's probably under waiver wire at this point. We've had him as an add and a drop already. So get back on the roller coaster, get ready to add him here and probably drop him again after that. But that's what a streaming QB is at this point.
So it's a 1 week proposition, baby. You just got to make it. Let's move on to the running back position here. We just talked about the Browns and their running back woes here. Nick Chubb, questionable here, right? I mean, I think this is looking a little bit closer to doubtful, though, right?
I think that was a little Freudian slip how you called the Browns the Bronze. I mean, you're not wrong. It is Cleveland. Yeah, Chubb missed last week. He's questionable this week with the short week, the Thursday night football, the fact that, he'd get a longer period to heal. I would consider him closer to doubtful unless the Browns do really need to win this game. So maybe he does push it to get out there. Yeah, highly questionable. Kareem Hunt, he's out. He's going to be out a couple weeks with a calf strain. I bet you he even winds up hitting IR. They're not going to push him too hard there.
Let's move on to Washington football team. Antonio Gibson, he's questionable. What's the latest and greatest with Gibson?
Yeah, he's got one of those things that sounds like, ow. He's got a stress fracture in his tibia, which it's not, people have played through it and everything, but it's pretty much a pain management issue and it could make it worse. He can continue to play on it, but the odds are it's just never going to really heal until he probably goes on IR, take 3-4 weeks off or something like that. So expect him to be, on this injury report basically every week until that happens. And I would expect him to play, but it's hard to see him get a huge workload when he's managing an injury like this.
Maybe we can finally see my boy Patterson. We'll see. Latavius Murray, still questionable. What's going on there and what's the injury?
Yeah, he played this week. It looks like it might be a high ankle sprain. He actually was carded, I believe, in the Ravens game. They have a bye in week 8. So even if he's out, there's a chance he only really misses one game, but I would expect him to be out this week.
Saquon Barkley with the Giants, any improvement going on there with that watermelon of an ankle? Hopefully they've gotten the swelling down by now.
Yeah, if it's still swole up, like you said, if it's, after you take the thing, if it's still up there for like 8 hours, go to see Mr. Doctor. They haven't listed as questionable. I would consider him doubtful. I would be almost shocked if he plays this week. So I expect him to miss at least one more game with that ankle injury. For the Bengals, Samaje Perine for the Bears, Damian Williams, they both missed last week on the COVID list. They should both be back this week after clearing with a positive test.
Let's look at a couple of running back ads for this week 7 here on the Joe Blow Football Show. Alex Collins was a guy last night on Sunday Night Football that looked like a guy. They had this scheme. It was, shit, dude. I could have ran through some of those holes. He's got to be on your ad list this week, right, Mills?
Yeah, you have him on there. It does look like Carson is going to be able to return when first eligible, but you should still be able to get another week or 2 out of Collins. The problem is he had an injury of his own. Pete Carroll expects him to play, but the Seahawks are so for shit with injuries that it wouldn't surprise me if he misses. So I would only spend maybe 5-10% of your FAAB on the chance that he does miss this week or is limited. Because on the other hand, you have their former first-round pick, Rashad Penny. He's about to be activated from IR, and he should be in there. I don't think he's just going to take the job from Collins. But that's probably enough to turn this into some sort of 2-3-way running back by committee. Again, you could throw, Penny on the back of your bench for 1-2% if you have the room. It honestly might be hard to start any of these guys now because it really, they'll use somebody else on passing down. So it's probably going to be a mess. And with Geno Smith under center, I don't think they're going to score enough points to really be chasing. It was nice while Collins got the bulk of the work or whatever. That was cool. But as soon as his job gets split up another way, I'm out.
2 words, Geno Smith. Let's move on to Cleveland. We just talked about both Chubb and Hunt out this week. It looks like more likely than not, in comes Dearness Johnson as the starting running back for the Cleveland Browns. Matt, how much FAAB we spending here, Mills, on Dearness Johnson?
Again, I think this is pretty much if you're in a spot where you had, Chubb or Hunt and you don't have anything at running back, he's pretty much probably a 1 week stream. So I'm not going that hard, maybe like around 5% of your FAAB. maybe up to 8 if you have absolutely nothing at running back. Demetric Felton is probably a little more interesting. He's kind of a wide receiver running back hybrid, but he does carry the running back designation in most leagues. In PPR leagues, he's interesting because he is that kind of dude who, even if he has limited touches, is the threat, like the big play threat. He's probably not going to get red zone carries, but again, if you're trying to save FAAB or whatever in a really deep league or something, he's a guy you could pick up like 1-2%, tuck on your bench. And again, he probably has a higher ceiling than Johnson, although a much lower floor.
We've talked about him a couple weeks in a row here, but if he's still out there, Michael Carter should be an ad, right? Maybe it's possible with the bye week this week, he kind of slipped past some people under the radar.
Yeah, a lot of time, we're at that point where people are going to have to start making decisions to pick up guys to cover, so they're going to cut people. So it's entirely possible he was either already on the wire or cut loose. If he's out there, call it 4, 5, 6%, somewhere in there. It's going to be hard to really be excited about starting a Jets player, but during the bye weeks, you might find the need to, and there is a chance that he sees his role grow throughout the season. So he's a kind of a little bit of a long-term play who you could also, throw in there as a flex if you really didn't have any other good options.
We talked about the injury to Gibson. Let's go to those two running backs that seem to be in play here, in JD McKissic and Jarrett Patterson. Talk to me about both those guys and what folks should be on the radar for this week.
McKissic is pretty much a guy you can only roster in PPR leagues. He does not get a lot of carries, but in PPR leagues, he is their version of James White. He's fine. He's kind of a back end running back to flex play. If Gibson misses time, I don't think he'll probably see a few more targets, as I would expect him to basically have the entire passing game role to himself. But the other guy who would probably get in there is Jarrett Patterson, former QB standout. And he's looked good in his preseason time. I don't know that he would necessarily be a monster, but McKissic, I'd probably spend a little bit more if he's out there 5-10% PPR leagues, because you can use him, most weeks, even if Gibson's healthy. For Patterson, probably 1 to 3% of your FAAB on the off chance that Gibson misses. He'd be basically just a plug and play option there. Not a super high ceiling, but he's a dude, I think, that's got a lot of talent that really could surprise people if he got a decent role.
One guy that seems to be available in a ton of leagues right now is the San Francisco 49ers running back, Elijah Mitchell. It seems to be like he's kind of the number one, at least for right now, right? I mean, this should be on folks' radar as a potential ad here with Elijah Mitchell, right?
Yeah, again, this is probably another spot where 49ers won a bye last week. So some people are like, oh, this is kind of a split job or whatever. But in his first week back from injury, he clearly ran ahead of Trey Sermon. The 49ers are going to get Jeff Wilson and JaMychal Hasty back at some point. So this could turn into, just a fucking Shanahan backfield. Where literally it's just fucking spin the wheel every week and see what comes up. But right now he seems to be the favored guy. And, a Shanahan starting running back should be owned. So if he's out there, throw 5-10% at him, get him on there. You might even be able to start him this week.
Yeah. We all know those backgrounds. One player that saw his workload go all the way up was Kenyon Drake, the Vegas Raiders, with Grudes out and Pistachio in. It looked like Drake's on the rise here, right? Is this potential ad for Kenyon Drake and the Vegas Raiders?
In most leagues, I wouldn't go nuts for him. He's kind of again a low-level ad. He's going to function similar to J.D. McKissic, and Josh Jacobs is going to soak up most of the goal line carries, most of the early down work. But it does seem that this might get Peyton Barber out of the mix, and that Drake would finally also be the handcuff to Jacobs instead of like Jacobs is hurt and he just stays in his role. So I don't know if he's going to be a guy you want to start every week, but he's not, you could do worse as a flex during the bye weeks. And if something happens to Jacobs, he could really be worth something now, whereas last time that happened, it was actually really Peyton Barber was the guy you wanted.
The trade of Sony Michel, the injury to James White, the benching of JJ Taylor. It looks like we finally have a clear-cut 1 and 2 out of the running back situation in New England. Damian Harris is the 1, and the rookie, Ramondre Stevenson, as the number 2. Where are we, Stevenson, and how available is he out there?
He's pretty available. Again, because you're talking about a New England running back, and we've seen what happens if they make one mistake. Yeah. So he is 1 fumble, 1 missed blitz pickup away from being on the bench. JJ Taylor's active again. But this week, like you said, we saw him run as a clear number 2, scored a touchdown, got 3 targets in the passing game, and Brandon Bolden was only targeted once, and he'd been targeted, I believe, at least 5 times in every game that James White had missed. So they kind of phased him out, went with more of a 2-man approach. So, with Stevenson again, popped in the preseason. If something happened to Harris, he could really blow up. But for now, he's at least, spending 2 to 4% of your FAAB, put him on your bench. If you're in trouble, you can start him, but otherwise you're kind of just sitting there and hoping, and Harris has been dealing with a bit of a chest injury, rib injury that could linger. So definitely a guy you want to have on your bench if you can.
Let's talk a little bit about 2017 All-Star, All-Pro running backs in the NFL, and the fact that 2 of them randomly play for the snake bit running back position of the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, how remarkable is it here? Let's go Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman and talk. I mean, is it worth it here? I mean, shit, you never know, right? I mean, what the hell?
I mean, they're all stars. They can get their game on and go play, but they're not going to play for me probably. If you're, you had Latavius Murray or something and you're absolutely Bishop Skanky at running back, sure, spend 2% on your FAAB on these guys. But it really seems that every week they're just going to kind of just go with the lukewarm hand, I guess I would say, at a medium pace or so. And it is what it is. Lamar Jackson is driving that offense. He is going to get the majority of the work. All you're really just hoping for is your dude gets, 10 carries, 2 catches and a touchdown. If that works, if that's what you're looking for, go for it.
Let's round out running backs here with just a smidge of strategy, and that is potentially playing the trade market. Who's somebody on your radar right now that just in case they get traded, you think is worthy of a roster spot?
I mean, really, I think the only real clear one right now is Marlon Mack, just because it's come out that he's asked for a trade. The Colts looking to trade him, and it was rumored that the Chiefs were interested. You saw Darrell Williams find the end zone twice this week. Maybe that means they're a little less interested. It probably depends on what the asking price is, but Mack is actively available, and how it is. If he's a running back that winds up in a decent spot, cool, but it's far from a guarantee. So again, if you have a roster spot, spend 1% of your FAAB, put him on there, see if something happens. If nothing happens before the trade deadline, then he's basically just a done.
Let's move on to the wide receiver position. And again, the theme of Hello, Mr. Injury is here. Mills, let's run through a couple of these. Let's start off with T.Y. Hilton and walk us through him and the other injuries that we saw this week.
T.Y. Hilton of the Colts, we saw him come back last week. He'd had a neck injury, and there was a little bit of a question about, how he would come back for that neck injury. He came back, looked good, and then had a quad strain. He's expected to be okay, but it really wouldn't surprise me if he misses a week or 2 here, as they're going to play it pretty safe with him. And while we're on the Colts, pour one out. Spend another dude. He might be my new Jeff Janis, but in Dynasty, Paris Campbell. A couple years ago, he was maybe my favorite rookie wide receiver in an absolutely loaded class, so that wound up being a big fail. When I got him in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I remember being very excited. Yep, he had a big touchdown this week. Looked like it was finally going to happen. Hurt his already oft injured foot on the play. Probably going to need surgery. Be out for the season. Sorry, Paris Campbell, but man, this is year 3. If it hasn't happened, it's probably not going to happen.
Was that the final Steve Perry? Was that the final psych out here? Shout out basketball with Paris Campbell. Now he's just kind of not fooling you again, Fool me once.
He ain't no Steve Holt, man. He ain't no Steve Holt.
He's not no Steve Holt. Steve Holt. Talk to me about Jerry Jeudy. Is my boy JJ coming back anytime soon? Where is he this week in the injury world for the Denver Broncos?
He's been designated to return from IR, back in practice, doubtful to play this week. Probably a 50-50 shot to play next week. Wouldn't surprise me to see him in there on limited snaps.
For the Brown Eyes, are we going to get the Jarvis Landry back anytime soon? What's going on with him? Things looking up?
Yeah, he was actually designated to return last week, and it looked like for a minute that he might play. He's going to be in there, and while he's not really officially on the injury report, it did look like Beckham had a little bit of an injury issue. So on a short week Thursday Night Football, it's not impossible that he's not available. So if Landry was dropping your league when he was injured, he's a guy you could definitely go pick up.
Now, walk us through what's going on with Michael Thomas. And no, I don't mean his ridiculous fall from grace to top targeted, one of the best receivers in the game. Can't guard Mike to fucking nobody. But walk us through what's going on with him, his IR status, and when we're expected to see him back on the field for the Saints.
Thomas is officially eligible to return from IR. It doesn't look like he's going to do so. A couple of weeks away is what I read. that could both be time needed to recover for the injury and time to get back into game shape as he was recovering from, I believe, ankle injury surgery. So it's not like a shoulder where he can kind of stay in cardio shape. So he's going to have to work himself back. So it really wouldn't be surprising to not see him in a game until, an interesting spot for him to debut might be on Thanksgiving against Buffalo Bills.
We'll find out. We'll see what happens there. Walk us through the plethora of shit that's going on at the wide receiver position for the New York Giants. What's happening there? And Kadarius Toney, that was a premature celebration on my part. Yes, I'm so smart. I played him. Fuck.
Yeah, I believe 3 catches for like 34 yards on the opening drive, and I remember hearing it on. I'm like, oh man, that fits. I'm gonna look, and then he got hurt again. So right now he's questionable for next week, legitimately questionable. As is Darius Slayton. Kenny Galladay is doubtful, but he ain't playing, so get him out of there. At this point, I think it's really become pretty clear that Sterling Shepard is the guy you want there. Toney, again, if somebody drops him and he's only out a week or two, you can pick him up for cheap. But if Sterling Shepard is out there, especially in PPR leagues, he's going to be like Jacoby Myers, but occasionally scores a touchdown. So you could definitely go probably in that 10 to 20% of your FAAB range if you need wide receiver help, as he's going to be a pretty consistent high floor option.
Let's round out the injuries here with Baltimore. Tell us what's going on with Sammy Watkins, and will this guy get his job back? I mean, maybe this be injury and, hey, best abilities availability, right?
Correct.
Yeah, as somebody once, I believe it was in the Justified finale, very aptly said, your timing sucks, because Rashad Bateman just came back. Devin Duvernay and James Prochet had both been playing pretty decently. Now Watkins goes out. Bateman had 6 targets his first week back. There is a very real chance that when he comes back, he is just a role player for the Ravens. And that's a shame, because I saw him out in the field a little bit, and this dude was moving. I'm like, is it Hollywood? And it's like, no, that was Sammy Watkins. Like, he really did look like, and as quick as I've seen him in years, and he, been quietly playing a valuable role for the Ravens, not super valuable for fantasy, but he'd been good for them on the field. So I feel bad for him. Hope he gets healthy, gets back out there.
Yep, we'll see what happens with Sammy Watkins. Let's talk about some ads. You mentioned earlier the Sterling Shepard, right? I mean, he's clearly the player there. If you gotta take a wide receiver for the Giants, that's your guy right now, right?
Yep, that's exactly the way I would say it. You're never going to be excited to lock down a Giants guy. And as I just said, Rashad Bateman, the first-round rookie pick for the Ravens, got back on the field. He has a very wide range of outcomes. So as long as you have a bench spot, I'd say if you don't need a lot of wide receiver help, throw 5% at him. If you're fucking dying at the position, you can go up to 20%, because he does have a very high ceiling. On the other hand, he is a rookie wide receiver, just played his first game. So expect this to be a little bit of a roller coaster malpractice here.
Let's talk about a player that it seems to finally have clicked for, and we're starting to see some consecutive production out of this player, and that's Henry Ruggs in Vegas. Talk to me a little bit about Ruggs, man. Is this a bona fide ad at this point? And depending on roster needs, what are we spending on this guy?
I would consider him basically a similar version of Bateman, but slightly ahead of the curve in that it is his second year. The change in the coaching absolutely could work in his favor. He's being used in multiple ways, not just running 9 routes down the field. So again, same kind of thing. If you don't really need a wide receiver or whatever, you could try to spend 5-10%. If you do need one, you could go up to 20-25%, because he is going to have a couple of ceiling games. He's also probably going to have those games where he gets you 4 or 5 points. But last year he was getting you 0, so he does seem to have a much better floor. And while we're on the Raiders, if he's still out there in a PPR league, feel free to throw 2, 3, 4% of your FAAB and Hunter Renfrow if you need like a wide receiver 3 or a bye-week flex.
Absolutely, he is targeted a lot. Let's go to Arizona. This kind of strikes me with AJ Green. I think we've kind of got a clear cut of the pecking order here, right? And the splash plays of Rondell Moore just aren't something that you can necessarily count on week in and week out. AJ Green seems to be consistent enough to be worthy of, what do you say here, Mills? Under 5% of FAAB, right?
Yeah, I think him and Christian Kirk are both in that kind of wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 flex mix every week. They seem to be kind of trading off as the second or third option. Moore has really seen his targets decline basically every week. He does contribute to them in the return game, but with them trading for Zach Ertz, it's really possible that he's behind both Ertz and chase him into the pecking order, which makes him 5th, 6th, 7th there. So, if AJ Green's out there, if Christian Kirk's out there, 2 to 5% of your FAAB if you need that help, as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 flex guy.
One guy that's been surprising, and I think he's still out there, is Darnell Mooney. Is there a real connection here with Fields, Mooney, and is this somebody worth adding in your opinion?
Yeah, he does seem to be the guy that Fields trusts the most, for better or worse. Maybe we'll find out that, Robinson's playing injured or something like that. But, Mooney's out there, like you said, a surprising number of leagues. So I would pay 5-10% of my FAAB on him. Just know that the Bears aren't going to score a lot of touchdowns. He's not going to get a lot of volume. So in the weeks where he doesn't basically score a long touchdown, he's not going to really get there for you. But he is one of those guys that could get, 6 or 7 of those games on the year. So, if you're hurting out there, throw that, 5-10% of your FAAB at him.
You're watching the Joe Blow Football Show, where we talk about beer, football, and fuckery. Stay tuned.
Players that are still out there that might be worth it. Let's just give some folks in the world out there a view of kind of that 1 to 5% range of FAAB. If they're out there, who's somebody they should consider targeting here? Just run through them.
Yeah, I mean, and these are mostly guys that were probably picked up in your league. Maybe they were caught. They're not going to be available in a lot of leagues, but the odds are if they're still out there in your league, that means there's not a lot of demand for them. So even though their names might pop a little bit, I wouldn't go crazy, keep it to about 5% or so. And that you have Tim Patrick for the Broncos. He might be losing some value soon when Jerry Jeudy returns, but he's not going to completely disappear. Mecole Hardman for the Chiefs. I do like him a fair bit. Josh Gordon didn't see a target last week, so he does seem to be clearly locked into that wide receiver 2 role for the Chiefs for now. The aforementioned T.Y. Hilton, it's always going to be a little bit risky with the injury, and I don't know that you want to play him on a road game, but when he's home in the Dome, you could do worse. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a spike game with over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns for the Browns. My main problem there is they're just not going to be a high-volume offense, and Jarvis Landry is going to return. Perhaps if Beckham missed time, Peoples-Jones can still get some snaps. Nice speculative guy, but not someone, you can fit into a shallow league, really. Marquez Callaway is still going to be the de facto number 1 wide receiver for the Saints for at least the next 3-4 weeks while Michael Thomas works his way back. So if he's out there, make that move. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, he had a little bit of a slow game for the Lions, got some GTP in there at the end, but he is pretty clearly the best option they have at the wide receiver position, and garbage time points count. So if he's out there, good guy to put on your roster, and you can all, matchup really doesn't matter because the Lions are almost always going to get that GTP.
GTP. Before we do tight ends, are we finally going to get Gronk back, man? We've been missing the Gronk spike. And when he comes back, Mills, does he work himself back into being the player he was prior to this injury for the Bucs in terms of volume and production?
I would think that he's on track to return this week based on the fact they played on Thursday Night Football against the Eagles. He's going to get that little extra mini bye, and he seemed to be legitimately having a chance to play in that game. I would say that they're almost 2 touchdown favorites over the Bears this week, so there's probably no need to push him. If he plays, he plays, but it wouldn't surprise me if he just does play a more limited number of snaps and, works in kind of third down around the goal line, stuff like that.
With Zach Ertz being traded, does this mean Dallas Goedert's going to be in for a bigger role? And how's it going with him being on that COVID list?
Yeah, absolutely. If he is somehow available in your league,
Somebody gotta be there when it gets ugly. Somebody gotta be there when it gets bloody. Somebody got to get their hands dirty.
he is a fucking priority ad if he's somehow out there. He's not out there in as many leagues, but he is out there in a few. He was on the COVID list. He's vaccinated from what I know, so I would expect him to be back this week as soon as he returns 2 negative tests in 24 hours.
Speaking of ads, let's go through some. You've got a priority ad right now for your boy.
Somebody gotta be there when it gets ugly. Somebody gotta be there when it gets bloody. Somebody got to get their hands dirty.
Zach Ertz. Walk us through the logic here with the loss of Max Williams and in comes Zach Ertz for the Arizona Cardinals.
It's not like you can really count on Dawson Knox breaking out. It's not like they have a lot behind him. So, it makes sense for the Bills to trade. I'm sorry. The Bills never traded for Ertz. I thought that actually.
He was in the airport so many times. He was at Anchor Bar.
I swear I saw him on the sidelines last week.
He was there. I don't know what happened.
He was traded from the Eagles to the Cardinals, who, as you said, just lost Max Williams for the season. They have been actually using the tight end this year fairly regularly. They thought enough of Ertz to trade for him. So the tight end is not great. So if he's out there, 25, 35% of your FAAB. I don't know that we're going to find a better tight end pickup like for the season long, potential that Ertz has all year. So, if you don't have a tight end, this might be it. So get it while getting's good.
One dude that you just can't quit, baby. For some reason, you're hooked on his shit, and I just, he's got you, man. And that's Ricky Seals-Jones. I don't know if it's just his name, Ricky Seals-Jones, or what, but I love saying it. We talked about him last week. He's another ad this week, right? He made the list.
Yeah, he's a cool name to say. And again, probably another streaming option because it is very possible that Logan Thomas does return from IR this week or next. But Terry McLaurin was banged up. Curtis Samuel's out. Rookie Davy Brown hasn't really done it. Someone got to catch the fucking ball. he showed out enough. Thought, got you about your 15 points on DraftKings, caught a touchdown. He's, athletic enough to do stuff. And we've seen tight ends break out in their late 20s or whatever. So it's not impossible that he becomes a thing, somewhere next season. But as far as the football team, they did just give Logan Thomas a contract extension. So they can talk all they want about getting him on the field more or whatever. But I would be really surprised if he gets a lot of burn once Thomas returns.
Yeah.
So that makes him kind of, keep it in that, 5% range of your FAAB, because realistically, he might only be a 1 week streaming option.
Let's talk a little bit about Dan Darnold. I'm sorry, Sam Arnold. I'm sorry, Dan Arnold. That's right. I will never stop. I don't care if they don't play in the same team anymore. I thought I told you that we won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. Shiny suit, shiny suit. If only I owned a shiny suit. Mills, I'm talking Dan Arnold in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is throwing to him. Every play, he's not giving the ball to James Robinson, right? So he's worthy of something here, right? I mean, I'm never gonna get a full-on rager for a Jags player, but he's worthy of an ad here. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, again, tight end position. It is what it fucking is. He's getting targeted a little bit in the red zone. Other than Marvin Jones, they really don't have another receiver that fits that profile. So yeah, 4% of your FAAB if you don't really have much at tight end, or you're just kind of like every week trying to hit on the latest and greatest. So this week, that's the Darnold.
The Darnold. One last one here, and that's my man in Indy, Mo Alley Cox. Talk to me about this ad. What's going on with Mo Alley Cox? It seems like it's week in and week out. Mo Alley's delivering the Cox.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you need Mo Cox, dude. I mean, that's all you
Mo
can.
Cox. His name's Mo Cox. Imagine if he was like, you know what, I'm gonna ditch the Alley. I'm just going Mo Cox.
But even Alley Cox is pretty good too.
Alley Cox. I gotta go get some Alley Cox, dude. Yeah, it's a great combo. It's a great combo.
Again, he's that former basketball player, was very raw coming into the league. Probably never going to be a high volume guy, but can get some usage in the red zone, do that kind of go up, box the defender out, get the touchdown kind of thing. And he's been kind of, almost in a perfect split with Jack Doyle. Doyle's still involved, but it does look like Cox is getting more targets. Will that continue with T.Y. Hilton back? Maybe he gets squeezed a little bit, but for now, at least he seems to have basically picked up most of Doyle's targets. So again, tight end, not great. If he's out there, blow that, 3-4% or whatever, put him on your roster, see if it continues.
Let's move on to defense, special teams. Let's walk through just a couple of streaming options here. I'll start us off. Green Bay. Okay. I like Green Bay this week because why? I'm no longer the Heineken keg's been tapped, baby. I'm no longer drinking Heineken. He seems to have produced enough game film now where defenses can take away what he does, and he's making more mistakes. He's more of a risk at this point and a liability than an asset, in my opinion. I think Green Bay's defense here is a decent one to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a chance Heineken still puts up a decent, fantasy day, because generally you're not really penalized that hardcore for fumbles, interceptions, sacks, what have you, except in certain leagues. So yeah, I mean, he's just, every game he plays, it looks like he's had one too many now, because he makes decisions like I make decisions after I have one too many.
And we all know how that is. Shout out Magnum. Mills, who you got this week that you really like? And does it have something to do with a great defensive mind battling a rookie quarterback? I don't know. I'm just going to throw an assumption out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to like the Patriots here against Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson has really struggled pretty much against everybody. I mean, Davis Mills did do it to them a little bit, but you also saw in the game sandwiched around that at home in Foxborough, the Patriots defense do a nice job against Tom Brady, and then a pretty good job against Prescott. The Cowboys did get there at the end, but they did force some turnovers and really made it a more competitive game than they thought a lot of people could. And because they did play, those couple of tough matchups, they might be, out there in your league. So if they're out there against the Jets, fire them up.
Fire them up. I'm going to go to the Rams. The Rams have all-stars at all three levels. I think they're a good defense, not great. However, I really like them this week against Detroit, even though Jared Goff and Stafford, and there's a bunch of storylines, and Detroit's 0-6, and when are they going to finally fucking win it? It's not going to be this week. And I think they're going to feast on Jared Goff. I think he's being called out by his coach. He's fool's gold. He's being exposed. This is his second team now. It's not all his fault. He doesn't have a great supporting cast, but I like the Rams in this spot. I think they get after him here a little bit.
Yeah, really. The only downside is because they had such a good matchup last week against the Giants. They probably now owned in most leagues, but they were cut loose in a surprising amount of leagues. So there are a couple leagues where they're kind of straggling out there. If they're still out there, obviously they're a good ad. You could throw the Cardinals basically into that same bucket due to a couple of matchups. They might have been cut, after that hot start to the season when they were everyone's favorite team, and now they get Houston this week. Even if Tyrod's back, I still like him there because obviously without Tunsil on that line, it's just their quarterbacks are going to get sacked no matter what else happens. So they have whoever defense is playing the Texans is going to have a pretty high floor as well as a high ceiling.
Who else you got here on a streamer option for week 7?
Yeah, probably one more again, and that's kind of the moral of the story this week is you have another team that's a pretty good DSD in the New Orleans Saints, but they want to buy last week. So in a lot of leagues, teams aren't going to carry a defense through the bye. So they were, they're probably out there on their wire. They're traveling up to Seattle. Again, the Seahawks were struggling a little bit with protection and everything when Russell Wilson was the controls. Now it's Geno Smith. He was decent enough against the Steelers, but still let their DSD have a good day. We've seen the Saints have a couple of monster days from their DSD. So if they're out there, they're one of those teams I'd also maybe spend 5% of my FAAB on because I think they're going to be, not probably an every week automatic start, but certainly good enough that there will be other weeks out there you can use them.
Yeah. So if there's one thing that we're teaching you here on the Joe Blow Football Show about seizing the gap, is there's strategy involved in this shit. And teams that are coming off a bye, guys got to make decisions to drop people. Get your fucking waiver wire picks in, man. Get your waiver wire picks in. Can't say it again. I'm going to. Get your waiver wire picks in. But before you do that, like, subscribe, follow, listen, and motherfucking seize the gap. Mills, where can they find us?
They can find us trying to help you be more efficient and seize that goddamn gap at joeblowfootballshow.com. We're at Seize the Gap FF on Twitter and Instagram. You can find our other Joe Blow stuff at Joe Blow Show on Twitter and Instagram. We occasionally live stream on Twitch. That's Joe Blow Football Show.
Joe, Blizzy, drinking, shizzy. We'll be back with more.
Yeah, don't worry. Please like, subscribe, comment, and we like everybody, obviously, even people who only own 2 shirts and falsely claim to be able to save your life if you were choking. Dude
Or defend you in a court of law.
Dude, he doesn't know the Heimlich maneuver. He doesn't know bird law. I don't even know.
I don't know bird law. I don't know bird law.
He calls himself a lawyer, and he is not well versed in bird law.
I'm not well versed in bird law. I'm not. That's one thing I will say. That's in over my head. But for just regular, regular things, call me Jamie G Esquire.
Can't even make milk steak properly.
It's kinda dark in here. I can't see you. It's kinda dark in here. I can't see you. It's kinda dark in here. I can't see you. So I really, really want you to see me. So baby, don't turn off the lights, girl. I really, really want you to see me. So baby, don't turn off the lights, girl. I really, really want you to see me. So baby, don't turn off the lights, girl. I really, really want you to see me. So baby, don't turn off the lights, girl.
It's getting so lonely inside this bed. To know if I should lick my wounds or say it was me instead.
I'm so fucking focused.